Hey yo folks, Cool18 here, and welcome to another Europa Universalis IV video where we continue our Tour du Monde, and today we're going to be looking at Portugal and colonization, which is why I've started from the 1508 start, because at that point Portugal's already got a few overseas colonies established. In fact, it's got quite a number of them on the go. So let's zoom in over here. Geographically, Portugal, I mean, it doesn't matter really what time period you start from, because actually Portugal's got an interesting history in real life in that it has not really changed its borders in a considerable amount of time, at least on the Iberian Peninsula, which is pretty stunning. Actually, it's interesting, there's no Spain yet at this period, although there is a Russia. Not important. Portugal. So we're going to start like with the others. We're going to look at some of their initial national ideas. Some of the stats, because we're at a later start, isn't going to be quite as relevant. I will say this, that early on, you're certainly not in a position to go to war against Castile at the start. In fact, generally speaking, your priority is to get a royal marriage and an alliance with them, and then you're probably going to go and harass the Muslims on the other side of the little pond over here as much as you can. And if you wanted to, you could easily take more territory as Portugal. You can see that, in fact, in this start, they start with two provinces in Tangiers and Ceuta? I'm not sure. And you could pretty much, as a player, you could really take a lot of the northern coast. That being said, Portugal tends to be a nation that is recommended for new players. And the reason is that you don't have to be involved in the very complex world of European politics if you want. As long as you've got your alliance with Castile, well, you're pretty much going to be in good shape. In fact, you tend to start the game with an alliance with England, and they're going to call you into some wars, for example, the 100 Years' War against France, which you can or cannot participate in as you see fit, and that's fine. You can maintain your alliance with England, or you can sort of leave them by the side of the road. Either way is going to be okay. Again, very beginner-friendly, as long as you've got an alliance somewhere, and generally speaking with Castile, you're going to be fine. You've got a very powerful navy right from the start, and you can do a pretty good job of holding your own with just that. You usually play Portugal if you want to play the colonization game and also the trade game. Colonization especially because Portugal is in the best possible situation to do that from the start. A big reason for that is their proximity to the Azores over here, Madeira, and also the Canaries, which in this particular start are colonized by Castile, but you can easily grab yourself as a player. In fact, you can also pick up Cape Verde over here. Not to mention expand into Africa as you like. Portugal's got, well, this is not a colony here. They've actually apparently got even more territory from the northern Muslims, which I had not realized. And then if we continue down the coast, in this start, you can see they've got little colonies all along the way here. And this is something you're actually going to be quite interested in doing, because things like your trade range and your ability to keep your ships stocked up are going to play a very heavy part in having these kind of colonies. And in fact, if we flip over to the trade map mode, you can see that there's quite a few little trade nodes along the way. And your goal is going to be, or one of your goals, if you're interested in becoming a trade power, is going to be to dominate as many of these little trade nodes as possible, which there's not going to be significantly huge powers in a lot of these, assuming things haven't gone particularly weird. You should be able to get a fairly decent slice of these pies and forward more and more goods around the Cape of Good Hope over here, all the way up the western coast of Africa to land in Sevilla, where you will actually have a pretty dominant amount of trade power. Yes, Castile will also have a fair amount of it as well, but between the two of you, you guys are going to be in a good position to try to grab as much cash out of this as possible, and that's fantastic. Plus, I mean, the colonies are never a bad idea. Hopefully you can shop around and look for one with, half-decent tax bases. Tax base of 3 is not terrible. 4 is a little bit better for these colonies. That's not too bad. Even a 5 right over here. Actually, they've got quite a handful of territory over here. Good for them. And then you could continue all the way to the Far East if you wanted to and really dominate a lot of the trade in a very exceptional way. And then on the other side is the colonization game. Now, luckily, you can actually play the two of them relatively side by side. Because, of course, your colonists, what your colonists are doing, which is these folks here, has nothing to do with your trade. The only kind of balancing act between the two of them will be your national ideas. And let's start talking about those. So first we'll talk about the actual Portuguese ideas. Built in, you've got 5% extra trade efficiency, which is beautiful, and 30% extra trade range, which is stupendous. That means you're going to get first crack at some of these extra trade nodes. Not only the ones that are coming around Africa, but early on, you can do a lot of work in the Mediterranean. Like the Alexandria trade node is actually slightly too far, but there are things you can do about that. You know, what if you grabbed the little island here? What if Sardinia was yours, or Crete? There's options there for expanding your control of the Mediterranean trade routes. In fact, if you're over here in Crete, well, then maybe you can also do some work in Constantinople. You know, so there's certainly some options there. So, so that's what you can do with the trade range, which is great. Also, once you get all your ideas, then you get the extra 20% overseas income, which is incredibly potent. And then as you unlock actual ideas down here, then you unlock more of these. So this would give you 10% extra production efficiency, which will be quite nice early on when you don't really have a dominance on trade. 25% colonial range is really, really quite beautiful. Until you get that, that tech level 7 for in your diplomatic technologies, you won't have enough base range to really get a lot done. This will enable you these sorts of things. This, and then getting the exploration idea, specifically this third one, the 50% extra colonial range. This will definitely let you get all of the islands. I'm not sure if it'll let you reach to here. And I think you might be able to start on the tip of Brazil with just that idea. But the Caribbean is particularly rich, and until you get the tech level 7, I'm pretty sure you can't reach it. And you're not going to have the colonists to sort of creep up here at any decent rate either. So that's that idea. What comes next? 10% extra global trade power, obviously very, 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 very potent. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to focus first on colonizing, and then you're going to come into your own in terms of trade, from your overseas trade, and then from finally slowly making your way around the coast of Africa. And then some of these abilities will start to kick in, and Portugal is going to be a powerhouse. Like, it's deceptive because they're small, right, geographically, and they aren't going to generally play out as a European power exactly. In terms of grabbing a bunch of land. Yes, as a player you can do that, although if that's your interest as a player, you're probably better off playing as Castile. They're in just a better position to play that sort of game. But Portugal is in a position to become a tremendous world power. Less of a European power, more of a world power. And a truly, truly impressive one at that. Next, +1 merchants. So again, that's going to give you more merchants, more ability to manipulate more trade nodes and route the power around all over the place. Cheaper buildings is nice, nothing wrong with that. Global settler increase, much faster settling of your colonies is going to be tremendously helpful as you keep spamming a lot out. You can see in this particular start, we've actually set up quite a lot of colonies. Open up the guilds, 10% more trade income modifier, obviously very, very powerful for you. So let's talk very briefly about how colonizing works. And then we're going to talk about maybe your ideas for which national ideas you might want to grab. So, for example, we've got a province here. We've got Grau-Para, yeah, something like that. And that might be a good candidate for a next thing to colonize. It's next to some land we've already colonized, which is great. It's actually got a tax base of 4, which is pretty decent. And how to do it? Well, we've got our 2 colonists, so what we can do is just send one here. That will use one of our 2 colonists, and he'll go there. They'll arrive in 123 days, and there was a certain percentage chance of successfully setting up the colony. Now, there's a few things that can modify your chances of doing that, one of which are the native populations. And this is not very high. This is actually quite low. There's much bigger problems in Africa here, where you can see 5,000 natives as opposed to, what was it, 500? And here you can see their aggressiveness and ferocity is 3 axes, 1 bow. And then over here we've got I don't know, many axes and a handful of bows, which increases their damage. And in fact, our chance of successfully settling over here on the Grain Coast is only 1%. 14% was not terribly high here either. But one thing we can do is we can grab our military, we're going to split them in half, stick some guys over there, we're going to take these guys and tell them to go and squish some natives, because, you know, that's kind of what you do, right? Hey, Empire. So yeah, we can do that, and that will start off the colonization process. Now, when our guys get there, it will actually... Can we still get our colonization chance somewhere? 14%. Okay, let's Let's just let time advance, ignore some... Yeah, so we've got a bunch of things about alliances. We've got a bunch of things about various native uprisings. We've got events based on it. I'm just going to click the first one. Although I suppose, shoot, people probably would have liked to have read that. This is a very typical event that I've seen before with the merchants. We will increase our tech cost. Savages of... Oh, we've got a huge uprising. Big problems. Trading in sugar, because we have a quasi-monopoly on sugar, we're going to get reduced war exhaustion. Take out a loan. Okay, I didn't realize we started the game with such negative money. We've got tobacco, which is going to give us a spy defense, because sure, that makes sense. Why not, right? Let's throw a decent leader in there and see what we can do. Sure, we'll take the alliance offer. Mostly, I'm just waiting for my my guys to get over here to show you the mechanic. Royal marriage, probably. How much money are we losing? Well, apparently we're losing a lot, and almost certainly that's from colonial upkeep. In this particular start, yeah. 707 colonial maintenance at this time. Okay, so this is a really weird start with all these colonies. Alright, we've got our soldiers here. Now, if I check my chances, it's still 14%. But with my soldiers selected, there's a button here to attack the natives. It only costs me 1 military power. The cost does go up depending on how many natives there are. But we can actually cause the natives to spawn, fight them, kill them off, eliminate the natives completely, and that should increase our chance. It's still only 14% in this particular scenario. And I think that it has a lot to do with the start that we've got going on in so many colonies. In fact, if I go over here and check the colonization chance, base value, production efficiency, because I'm sure, oh, you know what, I haven't actually done the colonization game in this patch, in this beta patch. When I played it last, I think the colonization chances were quite high. Now, the other mechanic is, in addition to sending this guy over here to see if we can set up a colony, because apparently we don't have enough colonial expenses. Oh my god, that is so expensive. This start, I don't know. This start is ridiculous. But we're going to see what happens when our guy gets there, see if he successfully colonizes. Alright, I really don't care what's happening with these events. Building colony and... Inquisition? Wow, the Holy Inquisition came to Spain and also to Portugal in 1536 and also stayed until 1668. However, it had more influence with Spanish monarchs than Portuguese one. We can institute them, hit better missionary strength, but increased technology cost. Lasts for 10 years either way. And also a lot of papal influence, which is nice. Or not institute them, sure. I bet you didn't expect that, did you? Alright. So he is actually trying to build a colony. Each month he has a 23% chance to increase the population by 30. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So these guys here, in this particular game, these are all colonies that are growing. I have a certain number of settlers, so we have successfully, just like here, we have successfully initiated a colony. So now it should be in my list, quite small, over here, which is also costing me money, which is going to be terrible. But we have set up a colony, and it's going to grow every so often. Now, these colonies will grow on their own, but with a colonist in there, they will help things out. So let's say Rio Grande over here. I really want this to get established a little bit more effectively. I can send a colonist over there. It will take some time for him to travel, but then once he gets there, our chance to get, oh yeah, because our chance of getting new settlers is really low right now. We do have a growth, but new settlers is low, but then sending our colonists over there, we should actually improve our chances of getting some more of that. Wow, these pop-ups are really quite annoying in this particular start. Yeah, I don't feel this is gonna work out. 1508 start, pretty bad. I mean, I guess we're technically at war. Let's raise war taxes. Oh, we are so screwed. Bankruptcy looming. Yeah, I think you're right. Wow. Well, it would be fun to start in this time period as someone other than Portugal and just see Portugal collapse. Now, I suppose what we could do is just drop the colonial maintenance down to 0 and stop that from being a problem, but then that's probably going to drop all our growth rates. In fact, our colonies would now shrink if that happened. So you don't want to do what these guys did in this game. Wow, this is insane. You don't want to do what these guys did in this game. Oh wow, we're actually losing colonies. And build so many unfinished colonies so quickly. You want these to turn into proper provinces. Now, you do get to snatch up a lot of land this way, it's true, but you want them to become proper provinces. In fact, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to exit this menu, and we're going to take a slightly later start than the 1508 one, and kind of compare the situation. So hopefully we're not playing a Portugal that is completely broken. Like, completely broken. So let's start in the 80 Years' War, which should be a little bit more effective. Say Portugal hasn't really grabbed much more in the way of land. Spain has gotten into the expansion game. In fact, is now Spain proper in this particular start. I mean, usually I always just play from the earliest start, but it's interesting to look at some of the later ones in here. I just want to demo the status. Now you can see Portugal only has 2 colonies, thank God. Cape Verde, which is interesting that it hasn't turned into an actual settlement yet. I think they were mostly interested in expanding their range. Actually, I'm not sure if the colonies actually extend the colonization range. And we've got Luanda over here in Africa. We have explored far more of the coast. In fact, we've discovered Ming and Japan, and that gives us quite a bit more trade influence. In this start, actually, they've gone and picked up a lot more merchants. Finished off the trade ideas, which is a pretty good idea there. Lots of extra trade range, lots of extra merchants. So a total of 3 extra merchants from this, plus we get our extra 1 from there, which is 4, and that accounts for all of them, which is good. So I wonder where they're actually placed to start off with. Tunis, all right. Sevilla, yeah. Brazil, very important. Caribbean, Genoa, and Mauritanian. Yeah, all right. And then we've got, so over here, these are no longer colonies. They're actual proper provinces. In fact, they've even been cored. And you do have to core them. After you set up the colony, you do have to core them by spending your administrative power. But they tend to be very cheap. And you can see here, 36 administrative power to turn Tete over here into an actual core. That is very inexpensive. The reason is that no European powers, no influential powers will have cores on there. In fact, I think that a lot of these, when you were to just make these colonies, I think, yeah, they'll be like this. They're going to start off with no cores whatsoever. And 35 months, 3 administrative power. Why wasn't it in the list? Because it's not actual annexation or overextension? Or maybe this menu, this screen just hasn't updated properly. Because obviously we don't have a core. There's no core here. So, you know, we would want to build that. 3 admin power, 35 months. Trivial, but very important to do. Yeah, it's really weird that that wasn't in the in this listing. We might have just needed to let time run. I don't know. But yeah, so you can turn them into proper provinces at some point, and then they stop costing you money. And then they actually start making you money. In fact, if we look at the economic situation at this point, you can see our trade is now worth 61 gold. We're not making that much in taxes, but 61 gold in trade. We also get some great tariffs that are from, is it the overseas stuff, or is that from people using our ports? It may just be the overseas tariffs. There's two phrases that can be used here. If we go to Spain, we go access, fleet basing rights. Is that considered the tariff or the docking fees? Harbor fees, yeah. So tariffs is yeah, harbor fees is down here. Okay, tariffs is the overseas income. And you can get modifiers to your overseas income, which is quite nice. But I think that, you know, these are the sorts of things that I think cause your colonies to declare independence from you, right? As certain people have found out historically, empires don't always last forever. You know, like the Byzantiums over here. So they're definitely gone in this start. It's kind of interesting to see the different changes that have happened. In fact, in this start, England is still just England. I guess, I assume that's probably historical, but it's quite shocking considering how quick England is to take over more territory in the actual game. It's possible that in this press preview, these bookmarks are not set up properly. I suspect, I mean, Portugal was obviously broken in the other bookmark, so I suspect that it's more of that. These bookmarks are not quite finalized, but it's kind of interesting to see. And I think that's the end of our tour of Portugal. I guess what we could do is actually look at the 1444 start and just check to see what our force limit is at that point and who our ruler is and what his stats are, just to compare. and then we'll call it done. 1444, yes, good. Play. Do. So do we start? Yeah, we do start with knowledge of the Azores over here. Oh, in fact, it's even a colony. Oh, I hadn't realized that. We don't actually have a colonist, but we start with a colony over here in the Azores right away. And Madeira is actually one of our core provinces right from the start. I had not realized that. The Canaries have not yet been claimed by anyone. In fact, it's terra incognita, so we're going to need to send some explorers there at some point and take a good look at that. And obviously, we would want to beat Castile to that. It should be fine. I think versus the AI, if you're a player who has any experience in the game, you should be able to beat Castile to most of that, and frankly, take over most of the Americas pretty handily. Maybe not the North. You'll be a little bit delayed there just because of trade range, but certainly South America and probably most of the Caribbean, I would expect. So your force limit to start off with is actually 18, which is not bad at all. You only have 6 active units, though. So rushing to an early war would probably be quite expensive to buy that many units. So you're not really in a good situation to do it. You do start with a little bit of territory over here, which almost certainly has a Moroccan core on it. So there's going to be skirmishes. Luckily, like I said, it's quite easy for you to create some alliances over here with Castile. Right from the start, they should be willing to do a royal marriage and an alliance, and then you're pretty much set. You don't have much to worry about. Your fleet, you actually have a pretty decent fleet to start off with, a whole 21 ships actually, which is very, very impressive. You're able to easily blockade all of Morocco if you want, and just sort of outmuscle their ships completely, no problem there. Of course, we start off as Catholic. Stability 0. We do have some Fezian nationalist over here, always a little bit of risks, although we do have a core on there to start off with, which is very nice. Starting missions, spreading our culture over here, forming alliances with Castile, and also conquering Tangiers, which I don't think you want to pick as your first idea, or your first mission. You could, and probably you could do it with any kind of experience, but most likely you're just going to aggro multiple Muslim nations simultaneously and be in a really bad place. We did look at the ideas already, which is great. Tech group is very standard. We're in the Western tech group, of course. We start with some higher trade efficiency than most people because of our ideas, which is great. Starting economy, most from taxation. But again, later on you will be getting the tariffs, or the trade, the tariffs. And if you happen to be the first person to colonize Mexico, your gold income will be ridiculous. Now, it does lead to inflation, but you will make a heck of a lot of money and hopefully overcome that. Our starting situation is we do have the alliance with England. And diplomatic reputation there. Feudal monarchy, 10% more national manpower, 10% more income from vassals. Not that I think we're going to have much in the way of vassals. And we do start with, again, middle of the road, but half decent ruler at a 322. All right, that is it for the look at Portugal. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.